Welcome, everyone. Hi, how are you doing? Good, good. Yeah, it's 2 o'clock, 2:30 on Friday. Oh, that'd be great. If you want to stand up, by all means. I mean, I won't stop you, but I won't stand up, but you can stand up. No, it's great. It's great for to be here. It's an afternoon. It's an afternoon ahead of a bank holiday, so I think everyone's mind is probably floating off somewhere else. But we'll try to bring you here for a good 30 minutes to talk about a pretty interesting, I'd say, topic, generative AI. So, the title of our session is The Generative AI Debate, Round Two. I unfortunately was not here for round one, so I don't know what additional context I should be providing, but, but I think we can have a robust conversation without knowing what round one was about. And here to have the conversation are three really interesting and diverse panelists. I think what's the intention and what has been realized here is to actually get perspectives across the board, some very different applications and engagements with generative AI, because ultimately we want to ask both questions about how generative AI is transforming the way we work, we learn, we play, but also ask critical questions about what concerns regarding privacy, regarding the future of work, regarding potentially like regulation for things related to um, deep fakes and the potential for criminal activity to arise from deep fakes. There are lots of questions that arise from the extremely rapid pace of development of generative AI that we've seen over the past couple of years. I mean, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago when VO3 was released, which is shocking. I mean, if you haven't had a chance to go online and check out the kinds of videos that can be created by Google's VO3, please go ahead and do it. It's scary. Let me just put it that way, in a good and also questionable way. Anyway, so let's kick it off. We've got three different great panelists here, as I said. I won't do the introductions for them. I will give them the space to introduce themselves, but I'll just give a little teaser and then I'll kick it off. The first person to my left is Elaine. Elaine is the CEO of Augment Aero, and Elaine's interesting AI application is within the airline space, particularly the aircraft maintenance space. Elaine, could you tell us a bit more? Oops,
Oh,
I'll get that.
throwing things at me. Um, yeah, thank you for such a wonderful introduction.
Of course.
How smooth is this guy, right?
Until I drop my pad.
Yeah. I'm Elaine. I am the founder of Augment Aero, and I'm just a problem solver, right? And we're using a number of different bits of tech, but also AI to just solve some really big issues in aircraft maintenance. I don't know if people have seen that doors come off aircraft every now and then. Like, that shouldn't be happening. And so for like my mission, it's to make aircraft safer, run on time, and reduce delays. Yeah, that's basically our mission, and we're using some pretty cool technology just to support aircraft engineers in what is a high stress, high stakes role.
That's great. We'll come a bit also to your background later on, because your background running a recruitment consultancy firm intersects with some of the conversations around AI and future of work that we'll get to.
Absolutely.
Cool. Nicolas to Elaine's left is the Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Singulate. And Singulate provides personalized marketing solutions using Gen AI. The former head of engineering at 11x, which is a very famous, I guess, one of the leaders of Gen AI in sort of the UK scene. So could you tell us a bit more about your background, Nicolas?
Yeah, so I'll talk briefly about 11x. So 11x was developing the very first digital workers. So back in 2022, when the digital workers, digital agents divide wasn't all that clear, they came out to market with the first digital SDR. So incredibly interesting product, incredibly well-timed product. So they went out to market. A year ago, I was the head of engineering when they launched the first digital worker called Alice, and then went on to found my own company, Singulate. So in Singulate, we're building the future of large-scale communication. That's how we call it. Incredibly excited about the opportunity that AI in general, so we do use generative AI, but we don't only use generative AI. And we are really excited about the opportunity that those technologies give you to create content that speaks to each one of the individuals that you're trying to reach out. So at the end of the day, think about how the personalization has evolved since the dawn of the internet. So we've been going from basically television ads to the digital marketing that you can see from Google that really does personalized content based on what they know about you and also what you're searching. So based on the context. And we believe that the future of those communications is to be ever more relevant, ever more personal, and ever more useful is what we're hoping for. So at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that all the spam that you're getting on your email inbox, which I'm sure you're getting a lot of, is filtered down by what you're interested in. So at the end of the day, we're hoping you receive less content, but that content is a lot more useful to you as an individual recipient. So yeah, incredibly excited about the space.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Nicolas. And then over to Nicolas's left is Wayne Gibbins. Wayne is venture partner at 7% Ventures. You are still also a partner at Bliss Farms, or were a partner at Bliss Farms? Long story, Wayne says. Wayne, can you give us the abridged version of that story plus your background?
Yeah, so I spent the last 25 years operating, advising, and investing in technology startups, mainly early stage. Following a kind of early midlife crisis 6 years ago, I went deep into the food and agriculture system, looking at food and ag systems change, and started founding a real assets firm. That's the Bliss Farms. I'm now full-time at 7%, looking into our Fund 3. We're a pre-seed and seed venture capital firm investing in transformational, which means existing technology transforming laggard markets, and deep tech, i.e. science de-risked but never before commercialized. And that's from quantum computing to fusion energy. We've got 150 companies in portfolio.
I would just listen to like this guy. He sounds like he knows a lot.
Good stuff. And just for context, my name is Tosin. I am an investor at Octopus Ventures. We're a multi-stage VC firm, so investing from pre-seed all the way to growth, and we invest across all verticals, basically. I spend more of my time in fintech and consumer applications than in other spaces. Okay, so now back to the conversation. I'd love like a question, same question for each person. What is your, in work, right? What is your relationship to AI? Like there are different spectrums of engagement with AI, right? Like there are, and to use some oft-used terms, there's on one end just AI-enabled technology, as in you're predominantly working outside of the AI space, but AI perhaps augments the work you do. And all the way to the other side is AI native, where effectively everything in the tech stack is built from the ground up using AI. And in fact, humans are kind of an afterthought in terms of building and building to scale in those kinds of companies. How would you define your relationship with AI within your work?
Within my work, I'm glad you defined that because I do talk to chat at 3 a.m.
You
every
can
now
go
and then,
you can
right?
describe the personal relationship too, please, by all means, by all means.
So from a business context, because I saw this question and I was like, oh my goodness, they've created a spectrum, like brilliant. Now I can really think about it. So actually, some of our features and products are like more towards native, and then some are just solving the most basic problem in aircraft engineering that can save time. So our sell to Ryanair, EasyJet, Jet2 is we can save them 10 minutes. Like it's mad because the numbers are so big. We sat down with Ryanair and worked out we could generate them 60 million in revenues a year if they did it our way. So like we're talking about just saving a couple of minutes. So if you can create and solve a problem not using AI, but a little bit of automation, like that's a bill money maker. So we're planning for what we do in 5 years at the same time as solving like real world problems now. So you can't just go, well, you can, but if you go full native, then you're not going to see a return on your money for like 15 years, surely. Like it's on average, 21 years to get to a unicorn status. And it's 7 pivots. I thought that was such a great stat. And so for us as a business, we are investing in like different features that run across the entire spectrum.
Really interesting.
I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. No, it does. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I would say Singulate, I would classify us as AI native, but I would struggle to think about us as leaving humans as an afterthought, as ultimately we're a platform that's enabling humans to communicate ideas better to other humans. So humans are very much at the core of what we do. I don't think any successful company is probably going to be AI native to that definition. But yeah, we use we use, our platform provides AI, but we also use AI in multiple ways at every stage of the platform. I use AI personally to code features, to gather ideas. We use AI for ideas on the branding side of things. So in that sense, we're AI enabled in functions that are not necessarily AI native in our company. So across the spectrum, I would class this in, but definitely not to a point where humans are an afterthought.
Appreciate that. When you aren't sort of the traditional operator in this regard, as in like you are an investor, but investment firms are businesses, right? And so your workflow optimization potentially could be influenced by AI. How much does AI play into the investment process for you?
That's a good question. I think, we fundamentally operate like a startup. We're a small team. We're like five full-time, managing 150 portfolio companies and raising 100 million funds. So we're busy. But investing is a human concept, right? Like pre-seed, we invest in pre-seed founders because of the relationship with the people, and that humanity you can't automate. So we have, and in fact, Harry's in the room, sitting in the back here. Yeah, lots and lots of very clever automations and augmentations that allow us to perform more effectively. But we're not at the point of submit your deck and talk to our AI, and we'll decide whether we actually meet you, because that's a bit. I won't use the words I'm thinking. It's inappropriate.
It'd be easy to game for someone like us.
But like, personally, I have an unhealthy codependency. Anyone that's look at psychology and relationships with ChatGPT Model 03 and deep research. Now we've gone quite deep together. So.
I want to ask as well, like, do you consider yourself as having like a huge number of data points? Because you don't know if you're good at investing until like you're 15, 20 years in, right? So like now, based on your experience, you have a really unique data set. So like if you look at it from like a creating AI data science perspective, like you've actually got a really interesting amount of knowledge about founders and.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I've had this chat internally. Moving into Fund 3, there's some really clever stuff we can build, and everyone would have seen these like the Sequoia Series A deck. Everyone should make their deck look like this, right? And it's both true and total nonsense at the same time. Some of the best companies we've invested in, the deck was terrible. Most people would never have taken a meeting with the company, and yet we invested in some of the best performers. So I think there's a lot of like bias inherent in humanity, and maybe the data and the AI can help us remove some of that bias. I know that normally relating to AI, it's the other way around. People think AI is going to have humanity's bias built into it, but actually on a day-to-day basis, if you just say, hey, Mr. ChatGPT or Mrs. ChatGPT, I'm thinking about doing this thing, and you've thought it through, play devil's advocate with me, what it says back to you will like makes you question your own thinking, and that's healthy, right? Like, because if anyone's familiar with Daniel Kahneman and the work on the book Thinking Fast and Slow, the cleverer you are, the more biased you are, and you respond to things thinking that, oh, I've seen this before, I know the answer, and you're mostly wrong. So actually, I really like using AI to play devil's advocate to make me really get into that second mode of thinking.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll come back to that because one of the recent developments also yesterday was the announcement of a $250 million fundraise by Quantum Light. So Nick Storonsky, CEO of Revolut, raised a fund basically as an I'd say AI native VC is to use our terminology. So let's talk a little bit more about pluses, minuses, how we think about that in the universe. Quick one to you, Nicolas. Where does AI genuinely enhance human output? And importantly, where does it fall short?
Yeah, so counterintuitively, LLMs are really bad at writing. You think they'd be good because language is part of their name of the definition, but they're actually quite bad. So that was one of our earlier foundings, and one of the ways in which we worked around that, at least when it comes down to communication, is in a convoluted way, LLMs can come up with great copy, but usually in combination with a human being that knows what they're doing. They can throw great ideas at you, like what you were suggesting. They can be good at summarizing content. They can be good at creating structure when there's none, or even like changing and editing your content. But they're not usually always great at generating content. So it would be a really bad idea for it to basically, for you to just go in and go out with AI generated copy for all of your customers. It would be a really fast way to burn all of your relationships.
Can I connect that? Yeah, in an interesting way, connecting that to airlines. So you said something earlier, Elaine. You jokingly talked about plane doors blowing off,
Yeah,
which goes back to the whole point about the fact that there's a zero error margin in airlines and flying, right? You make a mistake, it has potentially disastrous outcomes. Sorry. How then could you consider or conceive of a world in which an automation is driving key decisions about aircraft maintenance, aircraft like airline delivery, et cetera, right? Like how does AI play in a space like that with such little room for error?
what a question. So, like, we talk about airmanship in aviation, right? Because pilots now sit there for 8 hours and they get bored and they don't pay attention. And so, like, if something's wrong, they then panic, don't know how to fix it. So actually, their job is just to pay attention now, right? To something, and their job's really boring. They sit there for 8 hours. The plane pretty much lands itself. Like, flight itself, incredibly safe. But the errors, if you look at all of the problems in aviation, which there are absolutely a bunch, I'm terrified of flying myself, and so this has actually only made me give up and just think, you know what, if it crashes, it crashes. But when you are maintaining aircraft, they're maintained by humans, right? And sometimes people die in that process. Like, we had an aircraft engineer, 2 of them, they were inflating aircraft tires, and they did it wrong because they didn't follow the fucking manual. Excuse my language. Sorry, everyone, if you're offended. And that is not their fault, right? They were, there was a language barrier. They were working for an American airline, and they were actually, I think, from Mexico or something like that. I think there must have been a language barrier. And I can only assume, because it's all very top secret investigation, right? But we know it was inflating aircraft tires, and I've talked this through with aircraft engineers. 4,000 psi if you're filling up landing gear, 200 psi if you're doing an aircraft tire. Why on earth do we not have AI going, doot, doot, doot? Maybe don't do that because it's dangerous. Like, why don't we have that already? Why are we not using computers to do that? Instead, we're, being really creative and creating amazing, cool things, right? But like, there are literally fundamental problems in our society that we can really solve with AI. And so there is a safety question, like, is AI safe? We have a woman on our board that advises the United Nations on the safe use of AI, and she's incredible. And she's the one that really helps us engage with the Civil Aviation Authority and all of the big wigs that talk about safety. So it is a big change management process. But actually, we're creating a safety compliance tool in a highly, a highly dangerous industry. So it's like being championed, but like following those layers of process that are designed for safety. It's just a process-driven time thing. And so I would say you've probably got 5 to 10 years before I'll see any money from this startup, And so I would say that's probably the timeline from a safety perspective. So if you think, you could go into Ryanair and change the whole process, for them, they're looking at with us for like 10 years, like a 10-year deal, to get to that point, right? To roll it out across all of their workforce. They've got 3,000 engineers. So like actually managing the change management piece is probably my biggest challenge, and like doing that as fast as I can and going in with the right energy to do that.
Really
Sorry, that was such a long
No,
answer.
it's good because it raised a number of questions. Some of them they're off the piece here, but I'll ask just one and then I'll get back to the matter at hand. Going back to you, Nicolas, this is a space that isn't clearly defined in sort of regulatory terms, the one you're operating, in terms of what limits a regulator jumps in and says, no, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, right? Whereas here, like, there are clearly defined regulatory agencies, et cetera, that outline what aircraft safety should look like, what aircraft sort of maintenance measures should look like, et cetera. How do you then create internal guardrails if there isn't an external party barking exactly where the limits are in terms of Gen AI use and its interaction with the humans that you wish to engage with, right? How do you create those ethical guidelines internally, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, there's a combination of things. For starters, some of our customers live within regulated environments themselves, so we help customers in the finance industry. We're planning to help government agencies soon. We help customers on a wide range of areas. There's also some regulations that apply to us in the marketing space, so we must make sure that the communications coming out of our platform are truthful. They're not basically helping bad actors perform bad things. But the most important thing that we keep in mind is basically we're trying to be proactive as to where the regulation is likely to go. So for instance, when it comes to digital SDRs or attempting to pose as humans, that's clearly a self-defeating proposition, right? No one wants to be lied to from an AI posing to a human. So it's very clear that those kind of startups are likely gonna basically get regulated away. So we just try to be proactive in terms of what are the kind of tools that you can provide that are providing an actual value add to both the sender but also the receiver. And at that point, if both parties are receiving value, there's really not a lot of opportunity for regulatory complaints, basically.
Really helpful. Wayne, from your perspective, how do you look at a startup from the outside and assess whether, one, it is a credible use of AI or a hype use of AI? It is an ethical use of AI or an unethical one? What's your process of getting to truth, at which point you then make a decision and invest?
Well, I mean, that's quite a big question. Maybe it's better to so we look at AI at different levels of the stack. So like at the product level, for example, give three examples. We've got Limbic, which is working in mental health to reduce the time and the efficiency of clinical treatment in mental health. So reducing waiting times and increasing the throughput of patients in that space. So that's going to have its own regulatory frameworks and so on. So it's kind of like as long as the company are fully versed with that space, then that's kind of what we're DDing for, rather than trying to figure out the regulatory framework ourselves. We've got Circuit Mind, which is like generating working printed circuit boards, generative AI. And then at the platform, the infrastructure layer, we're looking at we're looking at the how to optimize today and how to build tomorrow. So that on all the products are optimizing today, and then the infrastructure we're doing is the future, right? So we've invested in Gensin, which is decentralized compute for training large language models. BBB Tech, which is biological neurons, which is they're already training large language models using living neurons at about 1,000 times more efficiency than semiconductor versions. And Ver, which is reversible computing, it's the only reversible computing company in the world. They already on chip one, they got tests, which Fortune magazine last week, are already demonstrating 50% less energy usage. So if you look at like the energy consumption of like Facebook's data centers, I can't remember the exact number. It's like, I don't know, they've got 2 gigawatts of renewable energy contracts. I think they just signed up 700 million last week. It's huge, right? It's like nation state type energy to train models, and it will just get bigger and bigger. So we see the future as being, now this is this ethical, right? Like we're looking at how do you massively reduce like the carbon and climate impact of training these LLMs, and then also like what will these LLMs, Gen AI, enable us to do? And that's even more exciting. I think that's probably a different question.
That's okay. That's totally fine. And that's an interesting answer, and there's lots of interesting examples for us to double click on. I want to give some space for us to ask questions here, so I'll ask one last question for all of us, and then we'll open up to the audience. The last question is this: within each of your spaces, what is your biggest concern about misuse of generative AI?
Do you have one on sport? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Okay, so what's my biggest concern of the misuse of AI? Like, that is not a question for me. That is a question for my advisor, Dame Wendy Hall, right? Because there's so many risks, and you have people that are incredible that are working at government level creating regulation, and so I would say I'll stick to aircraft maintenance and say, why don't we just focus on doing that part right? So that everybody can fly on time, no cancellations, and yeah, can feel super safe in an aircraft. That's my focus.
That sounds good. Nicholas?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very scary one. Our value proposition is effectively, we try to make for very effective messaging, right? So we want to make sure that the communicator really reaches their audience. Now, when it comes down to the opportunity for abuse, really comes down to what is that message that's being amplified? Is that message potentially a dangerous message? Would our platform be used by scammers? Would our platform be used by bad actors? And really, that's what we as a moderator, that's what our platform guardrails really need to solve for. Make sure that whomever our users are and whatever their messages are sending are sitting within what we consider generally at least neutral, but ideally a positive impact on the world.
That's great. Wayne?
I struggled to find one because I'm sometimes positive and sometimes negative, so I'm human. But let's work backwards. So the classic one is bioterrorism. Gen AI is going to allow bioterrorists to create new bioweapons and destroy the world. Is that an AI problem, or is that like a security, surveillance, supply chain monitoring? Right now, if you try and order materials to make a weapon, you're probably going to get flagged, and someone will come around and knock on your door with guns. So it's like, is this an AI problem, or is it something else? Right,
The human problem.
The next one is like deep fakes. That's going to cause a problem for a while, but hopefully the industry will catch up and overtake itself, and watermarking will be embedded in phones and hardware watermarking, so there'll be some traceability of provenance of video. So yeah, the assumption will be every video is a fake unless it's been watermarked as otherwise. But maybe the biggest risk is like everyone in the room not becoming augmented by AI, because you're going to get left behind, right? Like there's at least 30% efficiency available to the way we operate across every single layer of business. And I still know people that are like, yeah, I don't really believe in AI. And it's like, well, in 3 years' time, you're going to really struggle to catch up. And so there's going to be like a split. And I'm not sure I want to be on the wrong side of it, really.
I agree there, but can I just say to someone that literally works in the trenches, I had an aircraft engineer who is paid almost 100 grand a year turn around to me and say, I don't really believe all of this social media stuff. And I stood there and I thought, wow, like that is actually if you're looking at roles in engineering, like couldn't even tell you what I do when I come to these events. The actual, I say real world, there's probably like 50% of the population that do hands-on jobs, right? So there's quite a few people that haven't actually used ChatGPT. We're in a room full of people that probably have, right? But actually there is a big worldwide out there, a big wide world. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like of people that actually don't know or don't really care. So like actually what I would say is when you're speaking to startups, like there's so many cool things that could have a great future. But somebody that's actually sat in there speaking with the customers and really focused on business development I think is what's giving us such success.
Are there questions in the audience folks want us to ask? I see a couple of hands. Do you think it would be loud enough for you to just yell it? Yeah, I think we can hear him.
The cowboy, yeah. Can I take that one?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So like for us as a startup, like that works in, it's pretty safety critical. Like we take it so seriously. Whereas some of our customers, and I'm not going to obviously name names, that we're talking to, got hacked last week, right? So when we have that question come up with airlines, it's such a basic question that I can tackle as a business development commercial head because they're not doing enough. For me, it's my business, it's my liability. Yes, there's insurance, but like aviation, people do actually die. So for me, like it's the most important thing. Like we're getting the correct advice and we're building an infrastructure on a platform that's considered being considered by the MOD to move on to those sorts of things. So like that's like 1,000,000%. My dev director was employed for that reason because he had immediately started to talk about cybersecurity and why it needs to be safe. So I take it seriously, and I think everyone should.
Yeah, same. Likewise. I mean, you're bridging to a quarry a little bit. I'm an engineer, and security is one of the main things. We actually just got our SOC 2 certification. Pulling the back there, but in that regard, ultimately, when we're handling communications on behalf of our customers, one of the biggest risks is the opportunity of misinformation. So yeah, at the end of the day, for us, a communication coming out that wasn't controlled by one of our customers, or our data got very sensitive data that we're handling being leaked out, it could be a fatal flaw for our company. So absolutely one of the things we take seriously from day one.
Yeah, and I'd quickly chime in because I know time is short. Just to quickly answer your question in a different way, from an investor perspective, we're looking at cybersecurity solutions in a new AI world all the time. Both horizontal solutions, i.e., that cut across different verticals and spaces, right? Generally, right, if you are surfing online in this age and using Gen AI products, there's sort of different cybersecurity risks that arise irrespective of what the product is, but the fact that it is sort of AI enabled. And the second is sort of the vertical vector, right? There have to be vertical specific cybersecurity solutions in this day and age. Take, for example, in fintech. There's a world in which agents will be purchasing on behalf of people and will be purchasing from agents representing the merchants that are selling products. How do you build cybersecurity in a world in which agent-to-agent commerce is happening, not person-to-person comments? That has to be a new fraud paradigm that a payments business, specific and unique to payments, is built out. It's not something that's off the shelf, used in like a cybersecurity paradigm of yesteryear. So that's something that we look for, is like vertical-specific cybersecurity solutions that understand Gen AI and also see it like around the corners what's going to come in terms of the security risks. Questions. We're really short on time, so we'll have time for one quick question. I'm just gonna decide.
Hi, Mark Lamanumi. My question is, what is the most exciting application in which industry when it comes to Gen AI?
Single exciting application. Wayne looks like he's ready to go.
Well,
Go
I-
ahead.
I've-
I thought this would stump everybody, but I guess I was wrong.
I'm a bit of a bore. I spend my evenings researching consciousness. So I've already mentioned 6 portfolio companies, so I won't name drop any more of those. But I really like I did a talk 15 years ago on the convergence of megatrends, opportunities in the convergence of megatrends, and I think sometimes we're the way we've constructed education and the system we operate within is quite reductionist. So I really like multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approaches. And what I'd like to see is so we've got this multi-agentic AIs operating, and then combine that with complexity science, right? The work of Dave Snowden. One of the big problems we have is we're a problem-solving species, right? Our brains evolved to solve problems. So we go out looking, with a hammer looking for a nail, and frequently we get it wrong, and we try and solve a problem that's not the real problem because we didn't understand the underlying problem. So what Dave Snowden does is operating in human triads of three people, interdisciplinary people. You send out 100 of these triads into the world to sort of stress test in order to create the hypothesis, right? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And the way to do it in a complex dynamic system is to go out and probe the system using these interdisciplinary teams. I think we can do that with Gen AI, and maybe those agents are you, right? Not just agent as a service, but Wayne as a service, right? It's trained, the agent, on everything I've ever done and talked to it. So a little version of me goes into the world helping some other team solve a problem somewhere, or a little version of you. and you can sort of interact with it and get paid for your virtual self. It's a bit like cloning your brain. I think that's an opportunity.
Wow,
That is pretty cool.
that's blowing my mind.
I would say, to me, the question of what's the most exciting problem in generative AI is just what is the most exciting problem? And this whole conference is about people trying to find those most exciting problems around the world. I mean, I have a personal bias, of course, on communication being one of the things that can be incredibly disrupted. But I think healthcare, education, basically, what are the things that you personally be the most excited to be disrupted? What are the problems you'd be the most excited to have to see being disrupted? And I think those would be the most exciting problems you can solve with generative AI.
Like this, yeah, the world is full of problems. I would solve them all if I could, but I'm obviously biased, and we're the fastest growing human AI teaming business in aviation. So I'm going to say the biggest problem we're solving is human aircraft engineers making mistakes because humans do, right? So we want to try and help them and offer support and empowerment to not make the mistakes. But I am sat plugging my startup, so
You got to. The last quick space that I'd say I'm really excited about, and I don't have companies per se that I found here, but I'm super curious of, is loneliness, addressing loneliness. It's a big, the internet and the evolution of the internet has both created connection and created dire loneliness in many ways. Can Gen AI do something really interesting to start addressing what has become in some ways a loneliness epidemic across the world? So I'm looking for companies that do that. Okay, we are fast out of time. So I will have to call it to a close. Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you so much, Nicolas. Thank you so much, Wayne. Thank you guys for listening in to the conversation, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Oh, thank you for being such a good host.
No.
Thanks everyone for attending.